Hi everyone. How do we get an equation of a circle in this form to look like our nice standard form up here, where we can clearly identify the center and the radius? All right. Now, first of all, note that we have two leading coefficients on the left side. We have the 4 as the coefficient of x squared and 4 as the coefficient of y squared. And notice that these terms are on the same side. If these were different numbers, then we probably would not have a circle, would we? So notice that we have a common leading coefficient for x squared and y squared, 4. So we're going to divide both sides of this equation by 4. Remember that 0 divided by 4 is 0, not undefined. If you have no candy for 4 kids, you have 4 crying kids. All right. So we divide both sides by 4. We divide each term on the left by 4. 4x squared goes to x squared. 4y squared goes to y squared. Negative 16x goes to negative 4x. 4y goes to y. Negative 11 goes to negative 11 fourths. Sorry, there's a fraction there. And again, 0 divided by 4 is 0. But don't forget to put the equals 0. We have an equation here, okay? So that whole left side equals 0. Okay. Now, our leading terms on the left side are now x squared and y squared. At this point, we're going to group together the x stuff and group together the y stuff. We're going to group together the x squared and x terms over here, and we're going to group together the y squared and y terms over here. We'll indicate the groups with parentheses. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and add 11 fourths to both sides so that we have our non-zero constant on the right. Notice I said add 11 fourths. Don't say move. If you say move, you might make the mistake of putting a negative sign there. We're adding 11 fourths to both sides. To stress that, we're adding 11 fourths to both sides. Don't say move. So we've grouped together the x stuff. We have the group x squared minus 4x, plus we group together the y stuff, y squared plus y, equals 11 fourths. Now, we're going to create PSTs for the x group and the y group so that the PSTs can be factored as squares of binomials. Well, how do we create PSTs? We CTS, all these acronyms. We CTS. We're going to complete the square in both the x group and the y group. So how do we do that? How do we complete the square? All right, well, let's take a look at this x group here. We have x squared minus 4x. We're going to add a number in here. We're going to add a constant in here in such a way that the result will be a PST. The goal is to get a PST for our x group here. Now, what is the trick to completing the square? It's an algorithm. You take the coefficient on x, which is negative 4. So take the coefficient of x, which is the negative 4. You take that and you cut it in half. You take half of that. Half of negative 4 is negative 2. And then what do we do with that result? We square it. The square, well, let's be careful. The square of negative 2 the square of negative 2 is what? The square of negative 2 is positive 4. The square of negative 2 is positive 4. Okay. So we add 4 to this first group. But wait a minute. I can't just add 4 to this left side of the equation just because I feel like it. I have to pay for it. I have to compensate for it. A quick way to do it, since we're adding 4 to the left side, let's add 4 to the right side. Right. Now, similarly, how are we going to complete the square for the y group? Do this in green. What's the coefficient on y? The coefficient on y is 1. What's half of 1? It's 1/2. By the way, the sign doesn't matter because we're going to end up squaring anyway. We're going to be adding in both groups anyway. The square of 1/2, what's 1/2 times 1/2? That's 1/4. So we have to add 1/4 to this group over here. But if I add 1/4 to the left, what else do I have to do? I have to add 1/4 to the right. We're a real mess here. Here I've cleaned it up. Okay, so our first PST will be x squared minus 4x plus 4. And remember, when we add 4 to the left, we have to add 4 to the right. And then for the y group, y squared plus y, we add 1/4 to complete the square to make a PST. So that means that we have to add 1/4 to the right side to balance things out. Remember, we have to balance things out. Okay, don't forget to add the 4 and the 1/4 to the right-hand side as well. The goal is to balance. Balance the equation. By the way, why is it that we do this? Why do we take these coefficients on x and y, take half, and then square the results? Why do we do that? So very quickly, here's why we do that. Okay, so consider a plus b all squared. All right, the square of this binomial will be, careful, it's not a squared plus b squared, it's a squared plus what? Plus twice the product of the two terms, plus 2ab, plus now your b squared. And that thing there is going to be our perfect square trinomial. So if we're starting off with an a squared term, right, and an a term over here, really I should write this as plus 2ba. Right? Okay, so we have the a squared here, right? 2b is the coefficient on a over here. What do we do to 2b to get the b squared over here? All right, to get from 2b to b squared, what do? You take half of 2b, and then you get b alone, and then you square the b to get b squared. Notice if I had a minus sign here, okay, I'd have a minus sign here, minus sign here. I'd have a negative 2b here, but then when we square, it wouldn't matter because when you square negative 1b, you still get b squared. So this works whether that's a plus or a minus. Okay. Instead of a, we had x, by the way. It might have been more helpful if I had put an x here. X squared over here 2bx. So a took the role of x, really. All right. So anyway, we take the coefficient on the a or x here, take half of that, and then square the result. That's why that's how we complete the square. That's how we CTS to get a PST, a perfect square trinomial. Lots of acronyms. All right. So let's get back to business now. Okay, well, these are PSTs. How do you factor them as squares of binomials? X squared minus 4x plus 4. That's the square of x. Then you grab the middle sign here. That's a minus sign. What's the square root of 4? 2. Okay. Another way to look at that, half of negative 4 is negative 2. That was that middle guy in the completing the square process, the b. Basically, you're going to end up putting b or basically plus or minus b in here, right? You're going to take half of this coefficient. So whatever this coefficient on x is here, you're going to put that half of that coefficient over here. Half of negative 4 is negative 2. Okay, you're basically taking the middle guy, okay, whether it's a plus or a minus. You're going to take this middle guy. All right, x minus 2 all squared. Likewise over here, when you factor that, you're going to get y, the middle sign's a plus sign. Well, half of 1, that linear coefficient, half of 1 is 1/2. So we want y plus 1/2 all squared. Okay, observe that the square of 1/2 is 1/4. The square root of 1/4 is 1/2. So when we factor these two PSTs, we get the square of x minus 2 plus the square of y plus 1/2 equals 7. If you want to make this more closely match the standard form, okay, if you want to write this as the form y minus k, y plus 1/2 is y minus negative 1/2. But I would accept either as standard form for the equation of the circle. The situation is clearer either here or here than up here. Okay, this was a big old mess. I had no idea what the center or the radius were. But here, okay, so this is one form of an equation for the circle, but it's not very helpful. These are much better forms. These are standard forms for the equation of the circle. All right, from either one, what's the center of the circle? Remember, you're looking for values of x and y that will make the left-hand side equal to 0. That's the trick. We need x equals positive 2, and we need y equals negative 1/2. Basically, we need to do sign flips on these guys here, sign flips. So that's the center. I'll label that C. What's the radius? Is the radius 7? No, 7 is r squared. So what's r itself? R is the positive square root of 7. The center is at 2 negative 1/2. You need sign flips from the equation. The radius is the square root of 7, not just 7. It's 2 point blah, blah, blah. Irrational. That's okay. Meters, if you wish. Okay, we've done circles. Next, let's do lines. Next time.